I'd like to welcome you to the 10th in our Path to Next Career Success series with Intel alumna Gina Riley. Today's session is What's Next After Corporate Life? Discover Encore Fellowships. And if feedback from all of our prior events in this series is any indication, you'll find this session to be valuable and actionable as well. I'd also like to highlight for our Oregon participants that we have an upcoming social event on Saturday, September 13th. Registrations are already happening, so reserve your place now. You can see more details at the Intel Alumni Network Facebook page and LinkedIn group, as well as the Intel Retiree Organization Facebook group. And I believe we're going to actually place the Eventbrite link in the chat so that you can have that directly. So with that underway here, a few housekeeping items before we begin. We have enabled both the chat and Q&A features for this event. It is imperative that you remember that chat is for attendees, you all, to communicate and network amongst yourselves. And Gina has already made one suggestion about that, and I'm sure she will repeat it when I turn it over to her. The Q&A is for you to submit questions to Gina and our panelists, and is the only window being monitored for questions. So please don't put your questions in the chat, as they will not be seen or answered. So with our housekeeping out of the way, allow me to introduce Gina Riley, who will introduce our panelists for today and get us started. Gina?
Thank you so much, Howard. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I want to start off this session by acknowledging we have a lot of Intel alums, retirees that have signed up for this event, and also will be watching it on the replay for those who couldn't attend. We'll also have people outside of our Intel community that will be interested in this content. So we have that lens in mind, but our primary focus is answering questions for our Intel alums. So I have two amazing panelists today, and we'll be facilitating a conversation with four main themes. So we're talking about Encore Fellowships, which is one of the things that we could be doing as we navigate our Path to Next in our Path to Next series. I have Ed Bolognini. I've been practicing how to say it. Ed is the executive director of Encore Fellowships. He's been working in the nonprofit arena for over 30 years, most recently leading innovation around sustainable economic mobility for older adults. Ed believes that experience matters and success is achievable in every stage of life and career. Absolutely. Ed enjoys spending time in New York City and South Florida. And it is my pleasure to also introduce Meredith Leach. She has over 30 years of professional HR experience, primarily with Intel Corporation, where she held various HR leadership roles. She's currently an Encore Fellow focused on talent acquisition, helping connect experienced professionals with mission-driven organizations. And outside of work, Meredith is an avid golfer who enjoys time on the course as much as in the office. So Meredith, I am an amateur golfer, so maybe you can give me pointers sometime in the future.
Will do.
So as I mentioned, we have four themes that we're going to work through in the next hour. And those themes are, we'll discuss about the program. We're going to give you program highlights. And we know people have burning questions off the bat about whether or not Intel is sponsoring Encore Fellowships. Please hang in there. Don't even put that question in the chat, because Ed is going to address that right away. We'll talk about the application and selection process, some of the logistics and financials, and then the strategic impact that people make when they become an Encore Fellow. So those are the big four key areas that we will be reviewing today. Ed's going to pull up a short slide deck to be talking to here in the next few minutes. And as Ed does that, I do want to remind you, as Howard mentioned, we want questions in the Q&A. And I would hold off on your questions. Let Ed get through a few slides first, so that maybe you'll have that question answered right at the get-go. So Ed, I'm going to invite you to bring your slide deck up and share that with our community.
Excellent. Thanks, Gina, and happy to be here with Meredith, and very grateful to Howard for your hospitality today, and excited to talk about Encore Fellowships. Before I get to the slides, I want to just, if you'll indulge me for just 2 minutes to give you a sense of how Encore Fellowships evolved. The ingenuity of a fellowship structure for people in the arc of their career when they're finishing up what they've done oftentimes for a long time to whatever is next, an inflection point, if you will, came out of the ingenuity of Cogenerate, Civic Ventures, Encore, and Intel. Intel was a big part of how Encore Fellowships actually got started in 2009. Lots of success over the years. Civic Ventures became Cogenerate. Cogenerate, part of what's beautiful about that organization is that when something matures to the point that they think it's ready to be launched, think of parents probably sending children off to college, would be a fair metaphor, they're happy to launch it. And so they launched it to the FedCap Group in 2004 because we're all about scale at the FedCap Group. And we are excited to be scaling what Cogenerate and Intel really got going in the beginning. The beginning chapters of the relationship between Cogenerate and Intel in Encore Fellowships included a very generous sponsorship of fellowships by Intel. That concluded in 2024 for reasons that aren't worth going into the details on. That does not mean that Encore Fellowships is not interested in Intel alumni to be fellows. So I'm going to repeat it for emphasis. Any Intel alum is encouraged to and more than welcome to apply to become a fellow. Don't be distracted by the sponsorship piece ending. It's a distinction without a difference. We are very interested, and I'm convinced that the success stories of Intel alum who have been fellows is only going to amplify in the coming months and I hope years as the FedCap Group helps Encore Fellowships really become, I think, a global opportunity for folks in the arc of their career. What I'd like to do is I have a short slide deck that I've prepared that just to frame what I want to talk about in terms of what we're about. So experienced talent for mission-driven work. For many folks in Intel, I've come to realize that there's a culture of giving back built into having a career at Intel. Encore Fellowships takes that and puts it in a new frame and allows an Intel alum or any person who's at this inflection point in their career to actually experiment, if you will, working in a nonprofit organization that's driven by a mission.
Hey, Ed, there's,
Yes.
oh, there it is.
Yep. So just briefly, and we have a link where you can go if you're interested. I'm going to get to that later in the presentation today. But briefly, what a fellowship is. It's professionals, 20 or more years of experience and expertise, bringing that into a nonprofit environment. It may be a nonprofit that we find. It may be one that you know. We have some amazing instances where the generativity of an applicant to be a fellow, they came with a nonprofit and said, I want to help here. Can you give me a framework to plug in and make a difference in this organization? Nonprofit organizations are typically looking to build their capacity, traditionally don't have access to the kind of folks who've succeeded in organizations like Intel in strategy, sales, operations, project management, IT, HR, finance. Those are examples, but they're only examples. The only limit to the development of a project is the ingenuity of the organization and the fellow applicant candidate. We're happy to frame anything that's going to move the needle for that organizations. And what it allows the nonprofit organization to do, obviously, is to access expertise for this 1,000 hours at something other than what a market value would be. How it works, again, just briefly. A nonprofit, we are constantly talking to nonprofits all over the country, submit projects to us, and at the same time, we're developing our talent pool, applicants who think that they're interested, and we have a qualification process that's quite simple. And what we do is Encore Fellowships matches those folks, and if it's a match, the go sign goes up. The nonprofits pay a fee to our organization to cover the administrative costs of the program. The hosts and candidates are brought together to discuss and fit the project scope to be sure, is this going to be a match? And just briefly on the match process, we're looking for success as much as you can predict it. And so sometimes it's not going to succeed. And so we hit pause and we go look for another opportunity. We're looking for, as much as we can predict it, something that's successful and generative for the fellow candidate the fellow, and the nonprofit organization. The projects are 1,000 hours. The details of how that's worked out is part of the project plan. It's generally 12 months part-time or 6 months full-time. It depends upon what the fellow's bandwidth is and what the organization's needs are. And depending upon the specifics, it can be an on-site opportunity, it can be remote, or some combination of the two. And the fellows earn $25,000 for those 1,000 hours of service, paid as a wage. It's paid as a wage on a W-2. So sort of what makes a successful Encore Fellow? Someone who's bringing passion, right? That comes with all sorts of experience and is at a pivot point and is looking to plug their talent in a mission-driven organization. Someone who's looking to do something that's impactful, maybe not measured in the same way you were used to in your career, bottom line usually, right? But moving the needle for an organization that needs help building out its capacity to serve people. Some fellows serve in client-facing work, but most of them are helping organizations get to the point that they can do their work more efficiently and effectively. I will say the nonprofit world is not necessarily the same as where you're coming from. It's just, how can I put this? Loosely organized. So we're not always driven and we're not always at scale. Some of these organizations are very small. Some are startup nonprofits. It's someone's idea to move the needle and they're just beginning. So you have to come into this flexible and adaptable, and to recognize that notwithstanding all your expertise and experience, you're new, you're in a new cultural environment, and you have to kind of come in with a bit of a yearning to learn new approaches. Self-motivated, proactive. These organizations are not looking for people to just show up and tick boxes. They want you in, they want you to bring your ingenuity and your ideas to the table. At the level that fellows work, it requires most often for folks to be able to work independently without a lot of hand-holding, and committed to seeing the project through completion. And I will tell you that probably every project, as it looked at the beginning, looks different at the end. That's probably true in your work careers, right? What you thought it was going to be is not what it ends up to be. So that flexibility and willingness to adapt to the evolving circumstances of the project, I think, is a key marker for success. That's a snapshot of who we are, our application and selection process, a little bit on logistics and finances. I'm going to turn it back to Gina and take my slides down. Is that okay, Gina?
That sounds perfect. Thank you so
Excellent.
much. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to check the Q&A and just see if there's anything that we can tackle now, or if it's in our 4-part, process here. We've got one: is there a time limit after which we retired or separated from Intel by which we should have to apply? And if I had an application that was in progress and saved when Intel stopped their support, is it possible to recover that application?
There is no time limit. And if you applied before and you have not heard from us, we're going to give you a QR code and a link where you can get in touch with us. And my team is making a commitment to getting back to you within 5 business days. 5 business days. We will get back to you, whether that's rejuvenating a prior application or starting from scratch.
Okay. We have another person that mentioned that they applied last August before they retired from Intel, but I don't know what the question is. There's maybe another one I missed.
Gina, we could check in the system if the application is, there, and make sure that it's active, and have, like Ed said, someone contact them. So I see some names. I'd be happy to check. Hey, we have your application. I've given it to Liz, and you should hear from them. So that's an option as
Fantastic.
well.
And we'll be putting in the chat toward the end so it doesn't get lost, the links where people can, get in touch with Meredith, Ed, and Liz Burke, all of whom are open to your connection request on LinkedIn, and it'll help keep you posted on the things that are happening with Encore Fellowships. So I have another question. Do you only take officially retired from Intel? I worked for 8 years at Intel, but 18 works prior in software and management, and interested in coaching others. So I'm seeing this as a question of being retired versus maybe an alum, and Ed, am I wrong in saying it can be retired or an alum? Like it's all the same, right?
Correct. I mean, if I understand the question, I think what we would want to talk to whomever this person is, right? If you are interested, fill out that, it's a brief form, and we want to get on the phone, Zoom, Teams, however we connect with you.
Absolutely.
We would just want to make sure that a person has the bandwidth to take on a commitment of 1,000 hours. And sometimes they may say, I will in 6 months. Great. You want to start early? Get in our pipe. And we will get you calendared for when you think your retirement is going to evolve to the point. Some folks are semi-retired. It doesn't all happen at once.
Okay, got quite a few that are all relevant and easy, I think, for us to get out right now. I had applied previously to undertake an Encore program and had explored a couple of potential opportunities. The timing didn't work. Can my application be reactivated? Meredith, what would you say to that?
Yeah, definitely. We'll just, you could either send me a note and I'll look at your application, make sure it's in the system, send it to Liz, and you'll be back active again.
Fantastic. I want to say to Joanne, who's got a question, I don't know entirely what the question is because I don't know what Travis asked. I can't see it in the chat. So if you want to be more clear, I'd love to be able to address whatever question you have. And my
Travis,
former what's that?
Travis's question was answered. So look in the answer Q&A tab.
Oh, thank you so much. So we're going
I
to
answered it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And my former neighbor, Derek Felton. Hello, Derek. Similar to Stephanie's question, how long after we retire can we start the application?
You don't have to wait until you're retired to start the application. From my perspective, I don't want to get anybody in trouble at Intel, but you can contact us because you know you're going in 12 weeks. You can start right now. The sooner we get started, the more likely we are to discern that someone's actually going to be a good fit and that we're going to find a match, and we can time the placement.
So am I wrong, Ed, in hearing repeatedly, click on the link, and Ed and Meredith, please keep putting that link in the actual chat. People can click and get it open. But correct me if I'm wrong, people just need to apply, and the application process is not, that initial inquiry is not a heavy lift. Is that right?
That's correct.
And
your
there's
team
no
is getting back to
timestamp. No timestamp on it. I know in the past at Intel, we said, hey, you have to do it before your last day. You have to apply. None of those timestamp restrictions apply anymore. So
Awesome. I see a question from Lori sharing the last slide again. We might be able to pull that off. We're not going to do that right now, but please remember this is being recorded. It'll be on YouTube in the next 48 hours and you can re-watch everything. So please know that. I have another question. Please clarify the nonprofit fee versus the 25K wage and who is funding those pieces of the cost. Ed, what would you say?
The nonprofit organization funds both a placement fee to Encore Fellowships and the wage paid to a fellow. Full stop. Two parts of the price. If you were the consumer, if you were the host organization, you're delivering a wage to the person who's working for you as a fellow, and you're paying a placement fee to Encore Fellowships for the work we do to generate fellows for your organization.
Awesome. Thank you. I have another one. Same status as Travis B. Okay, that one probably got answered. Applied last fall when I retired from Intel. I was told funding was halted, tried to contact for status, but no response. Again, it doesn't matter whether or not Intel is funding the Encore Fellowships, correct, Ed? You just need to go to that link and start your application process. And the funding, do you want to explain the funding one more time? Because I have a feeling we're going to see this a couple more times. Can you just hit it one more time, Ed?
Absolutely. And like a lot of beginnings and endings, it was a little messy, right? It took some time to get the Intel website up to date. What we've been saying to folks has evolved, but today, definitively, I can tell you, if you are an Intel alum, you are most welcome to apply. If you applied before and were told there weren't any more sponsored spots, let us know. You can let Meredith know. She's going to have her contact information in the chat, or you can go to the QR code and the link that I just put in the chat, and we will find what you already told us. We will find that and start from where you left off.
Thank you, Ed. And I see that same kind of question with Ajay. Please send me the link and email address so that the folks in the audience can send a note. we are repeatedly putting these links in the chat, and we will do it at the end. And we will give you all the LinkedIn links of the folks who are involved. So it's not onesie twosie. We need, for the people in the audience to funnel into Encore Fellowships, you need to initiate that. It's difficult sitting here as a panelist for them to like reach out to each of you. So please know that's a heavy lift to ask. There's a really interesting question here by Todd. Is there a place to find the previous successful applications to see what tends to be a successful one? That's a really cool question. Do you have any example applications that kind of land and hit the mark?
I don't have them with me. That would be a long list. But what I can do is turn it over to Meredith, because she's actually got a couple of great success stories that I think she could tell that would be examples of how this generativity actually happens.
That sounds amazing. Would you like to answer that, Meredith?
Sure. Why don't I just start off with my own experience? So I am currently an Encore Fellow with the Encore Fellowship program through FedCap. So I work with Ed very closely. And before this, I spent 28 years at Intel in human resources, did a whole gamut of different resource leadership positions. And after I retired, I took the retirement October of last year. I didn't know what I was going to do. It was kind of a surprise for me that I took it. So I learned how to play golf better. Like Gina said, I'm very active in golf. Did some home projects that were long overdue. Visited friends, family that, you don't get time to when you're working. So I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And I got an email from the Encore Fellowship program manager about 4 months into my retirement. So I kind of forgot about, oh, I applied for that. But the opportunity was so engaging to me. It like aligned with what I love to do, which is find talent and place them into, nonprofits, which I wanted to volunteer, but I didn't know, you know, how to volunteer. So this was like a win-win for me. I could apply my, professional skills and really, help um, the FedCap group and Encore Fellows, boost their program. So I've been a fellow for about 5 months, and like Ed said, it's a nonprofits is a very different, um, sector. So I've really gained knowledge about how they operate and particularly, the resource constraints that they do have. So I've seen powerful impact from experienced Intel folks, even on a part-time basis, making a lot of uh, lifelong and impact to the nonprofit. So even after they're finished, the stuff that they did kind of carries on and helps grow that nonprofit's capacity. So Ellen Powers, whom you guys may know, she was pretty active at Intel. She retired about a year ago, and she found a nonprofit organization called Weave, and it's a Sacramento nonprofit organization for survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and sex trafficking. And she wanted to volunteer there. So she actually brought the nonprofit into Encore Fellows and made an arrangement where she could serve for a year for 1,000 hours part-time, supporting this Weave nonprofit. So even though she was an IT information security professional at Intel, she really had a passion for financial acumen, and she ran this volunteer group at Intel called Money Matters, and she taught people how to save for retirement. She's didn't have a financial background, but definitely a passion, and she studied for it. So at Weave, what she did was she really channeled her passion and her skills, and she created practical resources for people that have been taken advantage of financially, possibly by spouse, domestic violence. And she coached a lot of these folks on how to, get their financial security back. And then she also helped the Weave program pick their 401k plan, really, save money for the nonprofit as well as, benefit from the employees. So it was truly a win-win. Her fellowship is over, and she still tells me she volunteers like once a week with the nonprofit. So those are a couple of examples. There's so many more, and there are examples on the website. There's a tech example of someone who did something very technical for a nonprofit, but definitely Intel people can really provide value to this program.
We have a ton of our own questions and content that Ed and Meredith and I have developed to get you more information. And we do have quite a few questions in the Q&A. I'm going to hit a few that we prepared because it may diversify some of the content that everyone is receiving in the audience. So Ed, what would you say distinguishes the difference between volunteering and board service when it comes to Encore Fellowships?
Well, an Encore Fellow is a part of a team. There's a set of expectations. A fellow is like a colleague, like an employee. It's got a 1,000-hour collar on it. The details have been worked out in terms of when and where. Volunteering is a different kind of commitment. There's no wage involved. And oftentimes the boundaries and structure around it might have to do with a particular event, or I'm going to do this when I'm available. So it just fits in a different way. We have some fellows who have eventually evolved into becoming volunteers. Meredith's example is a good one. We have fellows who have taken another fellowship. They liked it so much at the first one, they applied and went and did another one in another organization. So it's distinct from board service in the sense that board members tend to be governance partners, almost like employers, if you will, in a nonprofit organization, as opposed to someone who's going to come in as a colleague and work with and for whoever's running the organization.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to go back to the Q&A. What is the percentage of folks being hired by a nonprofit after the 1,000 hours are up?
I don't have a specific ratio. We have very, very good metrics on outcomes that are positive, way up into the 90th percentile. Both the fellows said it was a generative and really important experience for them as their career evolved to the next step. Mm-hmm. And likewise, the nonprofit organizations. I would have to make up a metric, but I would say it's not that frequent that we're counting it. Most folks, I'm generalizing here, are at that pivot point, and when, let's just say at hour 1 and hour 1,000, their life has evolved, right? They retired, they became a fellow. All of a sudden, their breadth of vision changed. So where they end up, we probably should survey fellows on this. Did you end up where you thought? I bet the majority of folks would say no, not at all. But I don't know that we have a lot of folks who actually go to work in nonprofits. We do have a structure, which we would get into in a detailed conversation with someone as they conclude a fellowship. If someone says, look, I love this organization, I want to make a commitment to them, and the organization isn't ready to hire them themselves, we have a structure where we can continue to deliver the services of that person through a wage arrangement with the nonprofit.
Okay, great. I'm going to do kind of a dual two-part question. Meredith, maybe you can help with this one. You said this before. I think that we just need more clarity and hit it again. How do people browse projects so they can see what's active and what might be possible? And then the other side of that too is, I had a two-parter, but how can people kind of just see what is active and what Liz is trying to match people to?
Yeah, so the matching process is pretty, selective, meaning the host organization is looking for a certain skill set and possibly a certain person in the location of the nonprofit. They're not all remote. Mm-hmm. So based on, what the host needs, what happens is the matching process will look through the candidates and see, okay, who has this particular skill set or passion? And then, what is their location? Because that's gonna it could impact being selected. And then what happens is a email goes out to anyone who meets those qualifications, and they express their interest in the project. So you get a description of the project, and then it gets sent out to you, and you might say, yes, I'm interested. No, I'm not. I already have something, or this doesn't sound good, whatever it is. And then based on your interest, then a meeting gets scheduled with the host and the candidates, separately to see, how is it going to work. And like Ed originally said, a lot of times the host or the nonprofit, might be looking for something, and then after talking to a professional about it, it could morph into something else. So you definitely need to have, it's a high touch model, with an applicant and the host organization. It's not like it's all posted and you apply. It doesn't work that way. Ed,
Okay.
is there anything I missed maybe?
No, it was great. I think of it as an accompaniment model. We know you, the fellow candidate. We know the organizations, and our Encore Fellowship managers, Liz Burke is in the chat, leads that team. They're in the business of accompanying and finding matches. And we're constantly filtering for generativity. Is this going to deliver outcomes for the organization? Is this going to be a generative experience for the fellow? Sometimes the organization thinks it's a match and we don't think it's really what the fellow wants to do. And we say, well, we're going to keep looking. So it really is an accompaniment model.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a couple of questions that skirt on the edges of asking whether or not Encore Fellowships does board placements. So Ed, can we just nip that one in the bud?
We do not.
Yeah, that's what I.
Most nonprofits do not fund board stipends. So it's not in our lane. We're placing people inside an organization with some set of responsibilities, usually reporting to the executive director or whoever's leading the organization or one of their leadership team.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I just wanted to kind of nip that in the bud. And for those in the audience who have questions in the back of your mind about being on a board, that is a whole nother path to next topic. And it is a big deal. And most people that I work with in my coaching practice that are navigating to the next, and some of that is board seats, you need to be having worked for a couple of years prior to landing that. And you need to have some kind of, rapport with that said organization, whether it's nonprofit or not, whether it's paid or not. We're not getting into that today, but I just wanted to make that clear that that's not, you don't usually waltz into a board seat. So we have more questions kind of around the application process and the logistics and financials. I'm going to go into the Q&A, see if we have anything there first. Let's see. We already answered that you can basically browse projects, right? So we've got that. So Stephanie, I think we got that. Does Encore have a structure or process program that connects retirees with nonprofits that are looking to fill board positions? We just answered that. Thank you, Carter. Let's see. Okay, I think we have most of those. I was told a stipend wasn't available after I applied, and would I still be interested? Did I misunderstand? Is there always a stipend available, or was that specific to something related to Intel? Meredith, do you know?
This program has a stipend, yeah, if unrelated to Intel. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 20, just to repeat it again, because we're far enough into this, folks might not have scratched it down. $25,000, 1,000 hours paid out as an hourly wage on a W-2. And so you get a W-2 for the wages for the hours that you work.
Awesome.
Yeah. Some people can do it full time in 6 months if the project allows and the person wants to do that, or it can be spread out over a year to about 20 hours a week, which is more common.
Are there geographic limitations or remote options for the fellowship placements?
I'm remote, which is wonderful. The one that Ellen did in Sacramento, she needed to be on site. So it varies. I've been seeing, I would say 50-50 is what I see.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to rip through some of the questions we have prepared because it's so much good content. What happens if there's no immediate match, and is there a waiting pool or coaching offered in the interim?
We do not offer coaching, but we do keep a bench of talent, and we will be transparent with you if we're looking for a match. And like anything, I can commit to a service level agreement when we're going to get back to you, when we're going to tell you we think we're going to have something for you. By the way, sometimes we don't have something for someone who applies to be a fellow. And we will work with you to look at where else you might go. Like the discernment might lead to this person really wants to volunteer. We'll connect you with ways and places to volunteer. Someone might actually say, well, I'm actually really looking for a job. We'll actually talk to you about that. Like we can get you to folks like Gina who work in that lane. There's all sorts of options for folks who are looking for another employment experience and not a fellowship. So not everyone who applies qualifies, but we'll give you pointers, if you will, to places where you might find fruit on the vine. For those who are qualified, sometimes the match happens right away. We've got something right in our pocket. Sometimes you brought us something. There are occasions when we don't have a match, and we will keep you on our bench, if I can use that metaphor, and remain in contact with you.
Awesome. What are typical, this is a really good question, especially for people who have been in Intel for a long time and the culture is a part of the fabric of their being. We say, you know, our veins bleed blue. So what are typical challenges Encore Fellows encounter when entering the nonprofit world, and how do you help them prepare?
Well, I would say financial constraints, you really, need to be resourceful in, what you do. You can't expect, the nonprofit maybe to fund travel, for example. If you're remote, you might not be able to, get it paid for to go actually visit the nonprofit. That's one example. Equipment, you you want to do a fellowship, not necessarily, for the money. It's for, passion, giving back, and yeah, you get a stipend, but you just need to be very resourceful, I think would be one. Ed, what are some other things you think?
This is a generalization, but I am sure that the structures, like how a nonprofit carries out its mission, is not nearly as neat and clean as it would be coming out of an organization like Intel, right? So just be ready for an experience of onboarding that's not going to be as formal. Some of it is coming in as a learner. In addition to a new organization, you're moving into a different framework, which is mission driven, not bottom line driven. So I think that sometimes there are speed bumps in the road for folks because it's just not quite as organized and linear as they were used to in their career. And we talk about that in the process when we engage a fellow. We talk about the fact that this is going to be a change. I always try to say to folks who are sort of at my point in your career, remain a learner. It's a great way to go into a new organization and a new sector, the nonprofit sector. Go in ready to listen and learn. You folks bring all sorts of expertise and experience. It's just a matter of finding how you're going to unfold that for the organization that can benefit from it.
Okay, I'm going to shift into like strategic impact. I've got two questions queued up. Let's see. How do you see Encore Fellowships evolving over the next few years, particularly in the face of shifting retirement trends and nonprofit needs? We've got nonprofits struggling with their funding, as we know, and we are going to have a larger and larger population of people who are Gen X and boomers, et cetera, entering that retiree phase. So what would you say to the evolution of Encore Fellowships?
Our vision strategically is that Encore Fellowships ought to be the solution to nonprofit organizations that need an injection of expertise and experience in 1,000-hour chunks. Bringing folks in who can help. It might be a project, it might be building out capacity. And so we would like to be able to do that. We're in 24 states, the FedCap group in the United States. A lot of the organizations that have benefited from Intel Fellows have been West Coast specific. But the FedCap group is in the UK, all 3 countries in the UK. We have a vision to expand this internationally. We're in the province of Ontario in Canada, and we're headed to Australia. And so we encompass a very broad geographic vision. And whether it's the companies that are in the FedCap group or because of our reach, We see Encore Fellowships as a real resource in the coming 5 years for precisely the dynamics that you stated, Gina. I will say on the generational piece, on the talent side, we deliberately have stopped talking about numbers and age, because no matter what number you pick, it doesn't fit. We used to talk about 50 and 55. It's just so we're talking about folks at the arc of their career where they're finishing up what they've worked really hard at for 20 or more years, and they're ready for the next piece. And some fellows come in with sort of a blurry vision of the horizon. They're not quite sure what they want to do next. And this is a great next step to that. It's path to next is a great way to think of it.
Absolutely. And really, I see this as I've in my work with people and doing interviews of leaders who have made transitions in their careers without the use of job boards, which we know is a bunch of bunk in today's world. It's like a 1% to 2% chance to navigate through an applicant tracking system and land opportunities. This is one of 5 strategies to get seen and heard, which is what I consider volunteer leadership. So it's not for a high wage. Obviously, it's truly a give back. It's a time to, offer your strengths, offer your expertise and your skills, and also you're meeting people in a whole different arena that you didn't have exposure to before. And that's what career transitions are all about, is expanding your network, exploring new people and ideas, and seeing what else is out there. And so toward the end, I'll actually put in a link to a very small course that I created that in that I talk about volunteer leadership and how that could be a very effective strategy for each of you who are navigating that path to next. And it may be helpful and useful to you. We have probably 10, 12 minutes where we're going to navigate whatever questions you have. They need to go into the Q&A. I'll just repeat that. Anything else that's coming up for all of you. So I'm going to go back over and see what we haven't asked Ed and Meredith. How much choice does a applicant have when it comes to getting matched up with an opportunity?
100%. You don't have to do it.
Correct. And I will just editorially say, unless you are like really at a hot yes, let's keep looking. Because success requires, there's a question here in the chat from a man named Todd, which is a good one. I keep using this term generativity. Let me tell you what that looks like for a fellow when they finish. They come away from it saying, I see myself differently. I'm making this up. I'm no longer just a system engineer, which is how I thought of myself for 30 years. I am now someone who made a difference in the lives of the people that have been served by this organization that I spent 1,000 hours with. What generativity, and that becomes an ingredient in whatever the next chapters of that person's career is. It might be another fellowship. They might decide to go on the board. They might volunteer. They might apply for a job. There could be any one of a number of things. For the organization, they leave, the generativity for the organization is something's been accomplished. I'll give you a very concrete example. We have a nonprofit organization that struggled for a long time with a way to structure. It's an organization that actually employs people with disabilities. That's what they do. They actually deliver jobs to people with disabilities. And they never had someone with the HR expertise who could codify what that looked like in the workplace. That fellow changed the trajectory of that organization because she left them with something that they just had never been able to accomplish on their own. So it was a great example of the organization was a better version of itself after the engagement and the injection of 1,000 hours of expertise of a highly qualified HR expert who came in and said, well, I can do this for you. So those are just an example, both the organization and for the talent, what generativity looks like.
Awesome. Thank you. I think that let's just answer this as a timing thing. I'm also kind of curious myself. One question I have is, the percentages. What kind of flow do you have currently for, interest? And then what kind of percentages do you have to be able to place, and like how many opportunities are out there? Are you just constantly canvassing for opportunities and talking to nonprofits? Do you have like hundreds or thousands of people trying to become an Encore Fellow? Can you give us a feel for that so that maybe the audience can get a feel for the competition as well?
Sure. I wouldn't say this is terribly competitive in the sense
Okay.
that, like, there's only 3 slots and you're number 4.
Mhm.
It's competitive in that we want people to succeed. I know I keep saying that. If we don't think this is for you, we're gonna tell you that. And likewise for the organization, if we don't think a fellow is a solution, we're gonna tell them that they need a solution, but this might not be it. I will tell you, if you want some numbers, Gina, we have thousands of leads of organizations. Now, we're not in touch with thousands, but we're working with dozens and dozens at a time of
Mhm.
organizations that are evolving and developing the projects for us to use in matching with fellows. We have a regular stream of fellow candidates, many of whom are from Intel. And as today's discussion indicates, there's been some hiccups. I was told I couldn't do this. I was told they ran out of seats. This
Mhm.
is meant to clear the air on that. If you're leaving the employment of Intel and you are an alum, you're retired, you're retiring, any of those, we are very interested in helping you look at this personally. That's what that link is going to do, is connect you to a person so that we can explore whether this is a good option for you. But
Fantastic.
we're talking to folks all the time on the talent side.
Okay, that sounds great. And we're just within a couple of minutes where we'll pivot and have Ed, you can put up I think you have a QR code, am I wrong? You have a
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Yep.
so we're almost there. We'll have you flip that up in just a couple of minutes. And Meredith too, if you have like the link too, put that back in the chat. And what I want to remind the audience right now is look in the chat. You have a couple of resources that are coming down the pipeline for you. I've put in there twice the LinkedIn links to Ed, to Meredith, Liz Burke, who is in the chat. She's not on the panel today, but she's the matchmaker. Am I right, Ed? She's the matchmaker.
Absolutely.
So I haven't been able to follow the chat because I can't do both that and the Q&A, but Liz has been in there probably answering questions, I'm guessing. She's an amazing human who has like that big picture of who's getting matched to what. So please go in there. You've got 4 links to 3 of the Encore Fellow organization representatives in there in a block that I put in there. Meredith and some other folks are putting in, that link to apply or express your interest. That's what you need to do. So if anyone's putting anything in the chat or the Q&A saying, please reach out to me, realize you need to have it come inbound. It needs to come from you. Meredith, before I kick it back over to Ed to kind of give the QR code and start to converge, are there any other success stories or anything else that you would add just from your heart and your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, these things do take time. I don't want to, leave you with the fact that you're going to apply and be working in, a few weeks. That it happens. It just happened recently to someone who left Intel. But they don't always, come together. So having some patience with this is really important. And, we want to do a really good job making sure that once you say, yes, I'm going to do a fellowship, that you're committed and you're not just, doing it because you need something right now and you're looking for something else. So really need to be patient with it, really believe in it, because, it's not for everyone. And yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you. That's awesome. I actually have one more question that we didn't answer that I think is important to touch upon briefly. Can you describe not just the ideal candidate for an Encore Fellowship, but the other side of that, which is what makes someone maybe not the best fit? Can you answer that, Ed?
Well, I can
Sure.
even I'll give it a try and then
Okay, thanks, Meredith.
I would say, if someone has, like, let's say they're coming, if Intel specific, they're coming from a manufacturing environment where maybe they weren't working on process improvements or project management and they were more, technically focused, and they have 20 some odd years of that. That's most likely not going to be, a skill set that a nonprofit would need. So we see that quite a bit. And yeah, you need to have a, almost C-level, suite level kind of experience in leadership and working on your own, because you're not going to get a lot of, management in this project. So you need to have skill sets that you can, figure things out, on your own, and a lot of ambiguity in the projects. So I would say you must have that in all these fellowships. Otherwise, it's a job and someone's hiring you to do a task. And that's not what this is about.
Thank you. And also, I just want to recognize there may be some folks tuning into this now or later who are not Intel alums or retirees. And all of this information applies to anyone who is in that season of life navigating path to next. So please know that this is in the spirit of helping many communities of people navigating path to next. Thank you for that. Ed, I think this is probably a great time to go ahead and converge and have you bring up your slide. There is one more question that I thought was awesome as you do it. Are there any limitations or exclusivity requirements on other nonprofit work while you're an Encore Fellow? For example, if you're on a nonprofit board, can you join another one? Or something about mixing up being an Encore Fellow with other nonprofit work. What would you say to that?
As long as you're able to fulfill the commitment of 1,000 hours and the project as it's been articulated and that you've agreed to, you can be doing whatever else you'd like in that other time, including you're on the board at another nonprofit, you volunteer somewhere else. We're not limiting what folks are engaged in otherwise. I would say we wouldn't place someone as a fellow in an organization where they're on the board. That would be complicated. But if you are helping nonprofit A as a board member and you're interested in a fellowship and you can fulfill that commitment, that's the one thing I would add to Meredith's observations on, like, what's a marker of this might not work. If you can't commit to the 1,000 hours, it's not going to work. Now, that 1,000 hours is kind of project specific. It depends upon the specifics of it, but we really want people to be able to fulfill that commitment. Is
That makes
that responsive?
absolute sense. Yeah, I mean, you need a fully committed person or else they're not the right fit, period.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
not a hobby, it's a job.
And it's a good distinction for volunteering, right? If you volunteer someplace, of course you make a commitment to help them. We don't place volunteers, just to be clear. There was a question about that, I think, in the chat too. We do not place volunteers. If you want to be a volunteer and you're engaged with us, we'll help you find a way to volunteer, but that's not what we do. It's a whole different kind of relationship.
Fantastic, thank you. Would you take us through your last slide or so, and then Howard and I will start to converge and close out the webinar.
Sure. This is our QR code, which again is going to link you to what we've been saying in the chat all along. It's very short. It should take you 3 minutes to complete. We're making a commitment on today's call to responding to you within 5 business days. For those who listen to this recording, that 5 business day commitment will endure from when you complete the form and send it to us, that one of our Encore Fellowship managers will be in contact with you and will initiate that discussion around whether this might be an opportunity for you to take your talent and to amplify it by spending 1,000 hours for a $25,000 stipend over the 1,000 hours, however that unfolds, in making a difference in the life of an organization that probably is changing people's lives every day. I will say the reason I continue to work in the nonprofit sector, I don't get to deal with the folks whom we help in the FedCap group every day, but I get to build structures that empower other people to do that. And so I can go out and spend time with people who are actually moving the needles, saving people's lives. Meredith gave a great example of someone who's coming in and literally rescuing people who are victims. I know that what I'm doing is helping that happen. And that's really what Encore Fellowships is all about.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Meredith, any last words as I pull it back?
No, I was looking at the chat and there's several people on the line that have done a fellowship. So thank you for sharing your experience with the others that are on the bridge.
Fantastic. I'm going to remind everyone, reach out to these folks on LinkedIn, always with a personalized connection request. Say that I heard you on the IAN webinar. That way they know it's not a sales pitch or anything else, that, it legitimizes the connection. Liz Burke, Berke, she's in the chat. She's the matchmaker, like I mentioned. And, one thing that occurred to me as I was listening to all this is there's many ways to navigate your path to next. Encore Fellowships is one way. And one thing that I've done in my work over the past few years is I interviewed 7 executives, leaders who navigated their path to next into their next role without using job boards. And I mentioned that a little bit earlier. I call it the how your next executive role finds you, but you don't have to be an executive to take those lessons with you. And the lesson 5 of the 5 strategies is volunteer leadership, which isn't exactly what Encore Fellowships is, but it's a way to get seen and heard for your expertise. And so for those that are interested in that kind of content, 7 articles, 5 strategies, I'm going to put the link to this little mini course that I created in the chat. And for anyone who's listening to this and you go ahead and activate and take that little course, send me an email. And if you do that by Friday, the 15th of August this week, I'll exchange your investment in that for a half-hour free coaching call. So I'm putting that in the link right now. Grab it. And I'd be happy to chat with you about your strategies. So you'll get all that content and you get me for a half hour. Pretty cool, I think. So we are going to pivot and start to converge and close this out. The next path to next session will be on September the 10th, 9 a.m. And Howard, you know what's coming up, right? On September the 10th, the topic is Qualified Isn't Enough, the book launch.
Yep.
So I worked all last year with Forbes Books to write a book that helps job seekers navigate creating their unique value proposition. It reads like a workbook, and then how to navigate job search strategy, LinkedIn, resume, thought leadership, all those things. So for those of you who are interested in taking control of your career, you're going to want to tune into the book launch. I've got David Shaw, a former alum, who's going to be our MC for that event. And we're going to walk you through some of the fundamentals in the book. So Howard, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Thank you, Gina. Once again, you've done an outstanding job and assembled an outstanding panel to join you. We sincerely appreciate the sharing of your experience and your expertise. This has been a phenomenal series that is going to be continuing, as Gina just gave you a preview of the next session. So, you know, this is something that Intel Alumni Network has been trying to do over the last year to address needs of our current and our growing membership as Intel goes through its own trials and tribulations. So, you know, in as much as we can help support our membership, we want to do everything we can to do so. So as Gina mentioned, the recording of this session will be available later this week. Michael does a great job of turning this around typically in about 48 hours. So go to the intelalumni.org/events page and you can review the content, go back and, you know, look at any particular slides or review any portions of the session that you want to get some extra information from. And when you visit our website, you will also see a contribute link on the top menu bar. If you value the programming like this Path to Next series, our thought leadership events, and many new programs in development that we continue to provide at no cost to our members, we respectfully ask that you at least consider making a non-tax deductible contribution to the Intel Alumni Network to enable us to continue to deliver this type of programming that you value. So with that, to both our attendees and our panelists, our sincere thanks for your participation and engagement today. Have a great week.
Thank you,
Take care.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, thanks.